Body paragraphs. Paragraphs need four crucial things. One would be a topic sentence. Two would be evidence. Um, Three would be commentary on that evidence. And four would be some sort of conclusion for the point. So topic sentence. Your topic sentence should come straight from your order of development. So if I was arguing that everyone should become vegetarian because it will, in order to solve climate change, everyone should become a vegetarian. One of my points could be livestock creates a good deal of carbon emission. So by eliminating livestock, we could eliminating livestock or eliminating eating livestock, could reduce carbon emissions. So that would be straight from my order development. Remember, your order development is your map that's sort of tacked on to your thesis statement. It comes at the end of your introduction paragraph. Then after the topic sentence, you need evidence. And in between your topic sentence and evidence, you probably need some sort of link or introductory. You always have to introduce your evidence. Don't just stick it in there. So I could say something like, according to the New York Times, or a New York Times study in 2018, 14 to 18% of all CO2 emissions were from livestock. And then I would have to comment on that about how, what that means. That's like almost 1/5 of all CO2 emissions. That's more emissions than actually flying. Therefore, one of the big steps we can make to eliminate CO2 and to help climate change is to become vegetarians. You see, the evidence must be linked back to your thesis statement. Make sure you also cite it. So that would be like whoever wrote the article for the New York Times, last name would be in parentheses. Then after that evidence, I actually might want to go further with this and perhaps give you if I want to say it's greater than the flying emissions, CO2 emissions from flying, I might actually give you the evidence from CO2 emissions. And actually flying, according to a New York Times article, is about 3% of total CO2 emissions. Of course, the one thing that you may want to be aware of is that flying is on a steep incline as far as the amount of CO2 emissions that is being released in the atmosphere. You also always want to question where your evidence comes from. So the New York Times is probably a pretty decent source, but there are better sources, such as the IPCC, the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change, would be a better source because they really do deal with climate change. So think about where your sources, your information come from. I also might want to link evidence to how much resources it takes to produce 1 pound of hamburger, and the idea that we raise cattle and cows pretty much to eat. By becoming vegetarians, we can reduce the amount of cows and cattle we have in the world, and the amount of land and resources we use to produce that meat, and that's part of the carbon emissions. So both of those would be important. And then I would probably need some sort of concluding idea about why reducing livestock or reducing our eating livestock or connection to livestock is important. Then maybe even have a potential transition to my next point. So those are really the things that you need in your body paragraphs: topic sentence, evidence, commentary on that evidence, some sort of conclusion for the point. Make sure everything refers back to your thesis statement. If it doesn't refer back to your thesis statement, get rid of it. All right. Tomorrow we'll talk about conclusions. And then maybe on Friday, works cited page. Hope this helps.